When my son was 3 years old, my ex-wife, with the help of medical and school professionals, put him firmly on the transgender path. In the fall of 2014, my son's preschool teacher informed me that my son wanted she pronouns. This happened only 1 month after the traumatic dissolution of my marriage. At that time, I had joint custody, and it became a constant battle. I shared with everyone that my son did not express any of these preferences to me. I wondered if he was trying to gain more attention from my ex, and if she was using gender to split his loyalties. None of this seemed authentic, but every time I posed reasonable questions and expressed curiosity or doubt, I was looked upon with suspicion. Overnight, I became the dreaded, non-supportive parent. At the same time, my ex engaged constantly with school providers and medical professionals, and she demanded that her family and friends support my son's rebirth, as she called it, as a transgender girl. The gender-affirming model does not welcome questions and inquiry. Repeatedly, I was told by almost everyone that I must accept my daughter, that not accepting the utterances of a 3-year-old was tantamount to abuse and would lead to self-harm. It made no sense. I was now in a world where up was down and down was up. It was a time of unrelenting despair. I could not eat, I could not sleep, I barely functioned at work. My unwavering love for my son was all that really kept me from giving up. I was ignorant back then regarding gender ideology and the medicalization of minors. I was frightened and vulnerable. I needed help. I made an appointment to see Gender Management Services, GEMS, at Boston Children's Hospital in 2016. I brought my son to GEMS 3 times. Initially, I went with my ex, but as we became less and less aligned, we attended separately. We saw Dr. Amy Tishelman, a clinical psychologist and the director of research at GEMS, once yearly in 2016, 2017, and lastly in 2019. For 4 long years, my son lived as a boy with me and as a girl everywhere else. The situation was traumatic for both of us. I was constantly worried about the effects on my son of being torn in two. At one point, I even tried to use the girl's name, but I couldn't do it. I just could not participate in the charade. Over the years, Dr. Tishelman noted time and time again that there was difficulty in parsing out the impact of the parents' conflict on the child's gender presentation in each home. Even with the documented uncertainty of my son's presentation, Dr. Tishelman at one meeting coerced my son to convince me to go along. Her notes are quoted as thus: "Following my meeting with Rosa, I met with Ms. Spiegel and her partner, and again with Rosa's permission, shared that Rosa told me she'd like them to refer to her as Rosa and use female pronouns. Rosa agreed to come into the room, and all 4 of us met together. At this time, Rosa reiterated to her mother and partner that, 'I want to be called Rosa, and I want to be a girl.' My wife and I were stunned, but smiled, and the meeting concluded. My son was 6 years old, and within the gender affirmation model, he and the therapist were in complete control. At the final visit in 2019, Dr. Tishelman had my son fill out a gender worksheet, assigning numbers to how he felt. Tishelman's conclusion was that today she reported that she's not a boy or a girl, but something different. Again, there was ambiguity, but she dug in deeper. Dr. Tishelman advised us that we should start thinking about puberty blockers. Finally, I sued for full custody. Things were moving at breakneck speed towards medicalization, and I had no other recourse. At the trial, Dr. Tishelman was called to testify. My ex had Dr. Michelle Forcier as her expert witness, and she also testified. Dr. Forcier is a pediatrician affiliated with Hasbro Children's in Rhode Island. She is possibly better known now as the Chicken Lady in the film What is a Woman? It is documented in the court findings that Dr. Tishelman cautioned that failing to strongly support gender-diverse children can lead to suicidal ideation and attempts. This, of course, has never been proven. At the same time, Tishelman also testified there is insufficient research around socially transitioning children and that there are differing opinions. Dr. Forcier also agreed with Dr. Tishelman that there was insufficient evidence. The court findings state, in Dr. Forcier's own words, research on gender dysphoria is in its infancy. At my trial in 2019, both these experts in their fields admitted to poor evidence. It is chilling to recount that during our visits to GEMS, Dr. Tischelman repeatedly advised the importance of accepting Rosa and ultimately suggesting the use of puberty blockers while failing completely to admit that evidence around social and medical transition of children was sparse. My son was never gender dysphoric. My son was never transgender. It was all a lie.